The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of fear. Shadows stretched across the walls as the leaders of many alien races sat around the great table, their voices low, their eyes restless. No one wanted to speak first, for every word carried weight, and every mistake could bring disaster. For weeks, news had arrived from the edges of the galaxy. Entire fleets gone without a trace, colonies burned, and planets left as cold ashes in space. The enemy was never seen, only felt in destruction. Even the strongest empires had pulled their warships back, hiding behind weak defenses, praying they would not be next. The Council, once proud, was now trapped in its own fear. Some called the enemy a shadow race. Others claimed it was a weapon too powerful to understand. But none of them could explain how whole star systems vanished in silence, without a warning, without survivors. Every alien leader sitting at the table had the same thought: if this terror reached the heart of their worlds, nothing could save them. They looked at each other, searching for answers, but none came. Then one voice broke the silence. It was old, slow, and heavy. The speaker was a counselor whose skin shimmered with silver scales. "We are powerless," he said. "We cannot fight what we cannot see. Our fleets are blind. Our soldiers are afraid. Even our strongest weapons mean nothing. Tell me, how long can we hide?" The question cut through the chamber. Some lowered their heads. Others hissed or growled in frustration. Another counselor, from a bird-like species, leaned forward and spoke with trembling words. "There is one force in this galaxy that could fight back," he said. His wings shivered. "But to call them is to invite a storm none of us can control." The chamber grew even colder. No one asked who he spoke of. They all knew. For centuries, the name of that force had been avoided. To speak it aloud was dangerous, like awakening ghosts better left in the dark. Yet the thought hung heavy in every mind: humans. Long ago, humanity had ruled parts of the galaxy with unmatched strength. They fought wars that shook entire star clusters. Their technology was fierce, their soldiers fearless, their ships unstoppable. But then, they vanished. They chose to sleep. No one knew why. Rumors told of secret chambers, hidden on distant worlds, where entire armies of humans were sealed away in cryogenic sleep. They had promised to return one day. And every race of the Council prayed that day would never come. Another counselor finally whispered, "If they awaken, it will not be for us. It will not be for peace. Humanity does not serve others. They rule." His words made the chamber stir with uneasy movement. Memories of old wars flashed in their minds, wars where humans fought not for survival, but for dominance. They were a race that never bowed, never begged, and never forgave. The fear of the shadow enemy was strong, but the fear of humans was older, deeper, and buried in the bones of every alien there. One counselor slammed his clawed hand on the table. "We cannot speak of them. We cannot even think of waking them. Do you wish to replace one terror with another?" Another answered with bitter laughter. "Perhaps one terror is needed to defeat another. Do you see another choice?" The debate rose in volume, each leader arguing, each one desperate. Some wanted to keep humans asleep forever. Others wondered if awakening them was the only hope left. But no decision was made. Fear chained their voices. While they argued, a quiet signal flashed on a forgotten monitor deep below a dead planet. Buried under stone and ice, a cryo chamber stirred. A soft hum filled the air. Machines that had been silent for centuries flickered with light. A pod hissed, frost melting from its surface. Inside, the shape of a human soldier lay motionless, his chest rising slowly, his eyes closed but his body alive. The chamber systems whispered in a language no alien knew: "Reactivation sequence, begin." Back in the Council, silence returned. None of the leaders knew what had just awakened. They argued over fears of shadows while something far greater was already opening its eyes. The Council chamber was restless, filled with the low hum of worried voices. The leaders of the galaxy sat in a circle of fear, every word heavy with dread. They had spoken of the shadow enemy that destroyed fleets and erased colonies, but now another fear had been placed before them, an older fear that none of them wished to face. It was the memory of humanity. An insectoid counselor raised his sharp limbs, clicking them against the table. His eyes glowed with unease. "We all know what they are," he said. "Warriors beyond reason, destroyers beyond control. They vanished by choice, not defeat. Tell me, what kind of species chooses to sleep while the galaxy burns?" His question drew whispers. An elder reptilian counselor hissed, "They did not vanish in weakness. They withdrew in strength. Their cryochambers are not graves. They are waiting rooms." The words struck deep into every listener. For generations, the Council had buried the truth. The humans had not been destroyed in war, nor erased by time. They had sealed themselves in massive cryogenic facilities, hidden across dead planets, buried under oceans, locked in orbit around forgotten stars. No alien dared to disturb those tombs of ice, for all believed they were not tombs at all, but prisons built by the humans for themselves. The Council had never understood why. Some said humanity grew tired of endless war. Others whispered that they had seen something in the void, something so dangerous that they chose to sleep until the right time came. No one knew the real answer, and none had dared to search. A bird-like counselor spread his wings uneasily. "Perhaps they should remain asleep," he said. "If they wake, they will not thank us. They will not join us. They will take back everything we claimed while they rested." His voice trembled, but his words carried truth. The galaxy had grown under the Council's rule, but it had always been weak, always fearful, always divided. Humanity had been different. They were conquerors, builders, and destroyers. If they returned, they would not accept the fragile peace that the Council clung to. They would shatter it. Yet another counselor, with a voice like rolling thunder, growled, "And if they remain asleep, what chance do we have against the shadows? Our fleets vanish. Our colonies burn. Our people flee from the outer rim. If this continues, there will be no council left to fear humanity. We will all be ash before they even stir." The chamber filled with arguments. Voices rose, some calling for secrecy, others begging for action. The memory of humans was so strong that even speaking of them felt like pulling a weapon from its sheath. The reptilian counselor slammed his tail against the floor. "Do you not remember the wars? When their ships blackened the skies. When their armies landed on worlds and crushed every defense. Do you not remember the way they fought, not for survival, but for victory alone? They will not come as saviors. They will come as rulers." Silence followed his outburst. Every leader remembered. Their ancestors had told stories of human fleets so vast they seemed endless, of weapons that cut through entire armadas in seconds, of soldiers who never surrendered. To call them back was to invite not just survival, but domination. And yet, the shadow enemy was already dominating them. The Council had no answers, no weapons, no courage. They were trapped between two terrors, one that hunted them now, and one that slept beneath the stars. Far away, in the frozen silence of a forgotten planet, the cryo chamber stirred again. Machines long hidden began to awaken. Energy flowed through cables buried in rock and ice. Symbols glowed faintly on ancient screens. A pod released a hiss of cold vapor, its glass covered in frost. Inside, a human soldier's fingers twitched. His heart beat slowly, steadily, as if the centuries of sleep had been only a moment of rest. The facility's AI spoke in a voice no alien had ever heard. "Phase 1 complete. Begin reactivation of command sequence." The chamber lights flickered to life, illuminating rows upon rows of pods stretching into the darkness. Thousands of humans, sealed in silence, waiting for the time to open their eyes. Back in the Council, the insectoid leader leaned forward, whispering a thought that none wished to hear. "If the humans wake, they will not need us. They will not ask. They will simply take. And once again, the galaxy will belong to them." The words hung like a shadow over the chamber. Some counselors lowered their heads in fear. Others clenched their jaws in silence. No one spoke of the truth, that perhaps the awakening had already begun. Deep beneath the frozen crust of a forgotten planet, silence gave way to sound. A hum spread through the chamber as ancient machines, untouched for centuries, flickered alive. Frost melted from steel walls, lights blinked in rhythm, and the long sleep of humanity began to stir. Inside a cryopod, a soldier's chest rose slowly, then fell, then rose again, the rhythm of life returning after an age of silence. His eyelids twitched, his fingers curled, and his breath turned into mist on the glass in front of him. The computer voice echoed softly, calm and precise. Cryogenic suspension ending. Vital signs stable. Subject designation, human. The pod hissed, steam rising into the cold air, and the soldier opened his eyes. They were sharp, steady, and cold, as if the centuries had done nothing to dull them. For the first time in hundreds of years, a human was awake. The facility came alive with movement. Robotic arms shifted across the ceiling, scanners passed beams of light over the soldier's body, checking his health, measuring his strength, confirming his readiness. The soldier sat up slowly, his breath heavy, his muscles stiff but unbroken. He placed his feet on the floor, feeling the vibration of machines beneath him, and whispered the first words of the new age. "How long did we sleep?" The computer did not answer. It simply continued its work, bringing more pods online, preparing for what was to come. The soldier stood tall, his body scarred, his mind sharp, and his eyes filled with a cold understanding. He was not confused. He was not afraid. He had expected this moment, even if it came centuries late. Far above, in the sky of that dead world, a small alien scout ship drifted closer. Its crew had detected strange energy signals from the surface and had come to investigate. The pilot, a thin creature with pale skin and wide black eyes, leaned forward in his chair. "Something is active down there," he muttered. "But this planet is supposed to be lifeless." Before his crew could respond, alarms filled the cockpit. A massive defense cannon hidden beneath the ice tore through the silence and fired. A single beam of white light cut across the sky, striking the scout ship with precision. In seconds, the alien vessel was gone, erased in an explosion of fire. On the surface, the ice cracked, smoke rising into the thin air. The defense system powered down once more, leaving nothing but silence. Deep underground, the soldier raised his head as if he had heard the destruction above. He knew what it meant. The world was no longer hidden. The galaxy would soon notice. And with notice came danger. In the council chamber light years away, reports arrived in rushed voices. A scout ship destroyed. Unknown weapons detected. Energy readings are old, very old. The system was marked dead, but something has reawakened. The leaders looked at one another in dread, their hearts sinking. The reptilian counselor whispered in horror, "It has begun. The humans are waking." Fear spread through the chamber like poison. Some demanded fleets be sent at once to stop the awakening. Others shouted that it was already too late. They knew no fleet could land on a human world and survive. The bird-like counselor's feathers shivered as he whispered, "We prayed they would never return. And yet the pods open." His words carried across the room, heavy and final. Back in the chamber, the soldier walked slowly between rows of pods, each one filled with another human waiting for release. He pressed his hand against the glass of one pod, staring at the face of another warrior. His lips curved into a faint smile, but it was not joy. It was recognition. His brothers and sisters would rise soon, and together, they would remind the galaxy why humans were feared. The AI voice spoke again. Secondary awakening sequence in progress. Multiple pods reactivating. More pods hissed. More eyes opened. A faint light glowed across the vast chamber, as if the sleeping army of humanity was preparing to step forward once more. The soldier clenched his fists, his body no longer stiff, his spirit unbroken. He whispered again, his voice cold, his words sharp. "The galaxy will learn what it means to wake us." The council chamber shook with noise as the news spread across the galaxy. Human cryo facilities had reactivated. The alien leaders who once sat in silence now shouted over one another, their voices sharp, angry, and terrified. Reports came in from frightened scouts and trembling fleets, strange energy bursts, defense cannons hidden in dead worlds, and the sudden awakening of ancient machines. None dared to say the word aloud, but all knew the truth. The humans had begun to wake. The insectoid counselor slammed his limbs against the table, his voice a frantic hiss. We must act now. If they rise, it will not be against the shadows, it will be against us. His words made others tremble, but a deep-voiced counselor from a giant warlike race answered with fury. And what will you do? Send fleets to their worlds? Fire on their chambers? You know the stories. You know what happens when you fight them. Do you want to bring their wrath on us before they even decide our fate? His words struck a chord, for every leader remembered the legends. In ancient times, when humanity was awake, fleets that stood against them were burned in hours. Armies that landed on their worlds never returned. Humanity's power was not only in their ships, but in their will, a fire that no alien had ever matched. The bird-like counselor tried to calm the storm, but even his voice trembled. Perhaps they will not see us as enemies. Perhaps they will fight the shadows, and we can survive behind their strength. But the chamber erupted in laughter, bitter and broken. The reptilian counselor slammed his tail against the stone floor. You are a fool. They will not fight for us. They will fight for themselves. And when the shadows are gone, who will they turn to? Who will they conquer next? Do you not remember what it means when a human fleet rises? His words spread a shiver through the chamber. Some whispered prayers in languages long forgotten. Others closed their eyes, remembering stories passed down by their ancestors, stories of human warships blocking out the stars and soldiers who fought until nothing was left alive. The insectoid counselor hissed again. We must strike first. Destroy their chambers before the awakening spreads. But another voice, this one slow and heavy, cut through the noise. It was the elder with silver scales, the one who had warned of shadows before. His eyes glowed with cold wisdom. Strike first, and you sign our death. Do you think their defenses are unguarded? A single scout ship was erased before it even entered orbit. That was only one defense system, one world. If we send fleets, we will lose them. If we provoke humanity, we will burn before they even fully rise. Silence followed his words, heavy and suffocating. The truth could not be denied. To fight humanity before they were awake was suicide. To wait was terror. The council was trapped, powerless before an enemy both sleeping and alive. Reports came again, more frantic this time. Another chamber has activated. Multiple pods opening. Energy readings spreading across the sector. The alien voices grew louder, panic turning into chaos. Some demanded to send messengers, envoys of peace, gifts of surrender. Others shouted that such weakness would only make them prey. But beneath all the arguments, one truth remained: they were afraid. Afraid of the shadows that hunted them, afraid of the humans who were rising, and afraid of themselves, for they no longer trusted each other. Far away, in the void of space, a signal flashed. Above the dead planet, a human warship long thought silent began to stir. Its engines glowed faintly, its systems hummed to life. The massive vessel, scarred but unbroken, drifted into the light. Its hull bore marks of ancient wars, yet its weapons gleamed with deadly promise. The council chamber froze when the report arrived. A human warship has powered on. It is active. No one spoke. No one breathed. The ship had not moved, had not fired, had not spoken, yet its presence was enough to silence an entire galaxy. Finally, the bird-like counselor whispered what all of them already knew. If they rise, it is not the shadows we must fear. It is them. The cryo chambers were no longer silent. Rows of pods opened with sharp hisses, steam pouring into the cold air as soldiers stepped forward, their bodies stiff but their eyes sharp and alive. One by one, humanity returned to breath, their hearts beating strong after centuries of frozen time. The first awakened soldier stood tall among them, his gaze sweeping across the vast chamber filled with glowing lights and awakening figures. He gave no orders, yet every human who stepped from their pod moved with discipline, as if centuries of sleep had not broken their unity. Machines hummed overhead, scanning their armor, repairing old systems, activating weapons long thought forgotten. The facility AI spoke in a calm, commanding tone. Awakening sequence complete. Human forces at 20% readiness. Defensive fleet activated. Outside, in the darkness of space, massive hangar doors opened beneath the surface of the dead world. Ancient warships, hidden for ages, powered on. Their engines glowed like suns, their hulls rising from the shadows with a silent promise of destruction. The ships moved with purpose, their weapons systems flashing to life, their targeting systems scanning the void. The galaxy had forgotten them, but the ships had never forgotten their mission. They had waited for their masters, and now their masters had returned. In the council chamber, panic turned into dread as the reports flooded in. Multiple human vessels detected. Class unknown. Power levels beyond our sensors. They are mobilizing. The insectoid counselor shouted in fear, his limbs scraping against the table. They are not waiting. They are preparing for war. Another voice, low and broken, whispered the truth. They never wait. They act. The counselors argued again, but no one listened, for in their hearts they knew it was already too late. Humanity was awake, and when humanity was awake, the galaxy trembled. On the planet, the awakened soldiers moved together, forming squads, checking weapons, preparing without words. They did not speak of peace, they did not question their orders, for they already knew their purpose. They looked to the first awakened soldier, who stood at the center of the chamber like a commander returned from the grave. His voice was calm, steady, and dangerous. The galaxy has changed while we slept. But the rules remain the same. We are humanity. We do not bow. We do not beg. We take. His words echoed through the chamber, carried by the silence of thousands of soldiers who stood ready to follow. More pods opened. More warriors stepped out. More ships powered on. The awakening was no longer a secret, it was a storm. Across the stars, alien fleets watched in terror as human warships moved into formation, their engines flaring like fire, their weapons glowing with deadly light. Some fleets retreated instantly, too afraid to remain in range of the awakening force. Others stayed, frozen in fear, unable to act. Not a single human weapon fired, yet entire alien armadas backed away without resistance. The reputation of humanity was enough to break them. In the council chamber, the bird-like counselor's feathers shook violently. They do not need to strike. Their presence alone is war. The reptilian counselor lowered his head, his voice heavy with despair. They are not rising to help us. They are rising to remind us who rules. The reports grew worse. Human ships leaving orbit. Defensive fleets moving beyond the dead world. Their scanners are active. They are watching us. No one in the council dared to send a signal. To reach out was to draw attention, and to draw attention was death. Yet silence was no protection either. The humans had awoken, and nothing could hide from their gaze. Back in the cryo facility, the commander looked to the vast wall of pods still glowing with life, waiting for their turn to open. He clenched his fists, his eyes burning with resolve. This galaxy grew weak while we slept. It forgot what it meant to fear. That ends now. Outside, the human fleet aligned in perfect silence, ready to move, ready to strike, ready to reclaim the stars that had been left in the hands of weaker races. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The shadow enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for months finally revealed itself again, striking at the outer rim with brutal speed. Entire colonies were ripped apart, their defenses crushed as if they were made of paper. Alien fleets, broken and frightened, sent desperate calls for help, but no one in the council answered. They had no strength left, only fear. The council gathered once more in their great chamber, their faces grim and hopeless. "The shadows move faster than ever," one counselor whispered, his voice barely a breath. "We cannot stop them. Soon they will be here." Another hissed in panic. "Our fleets are gone. Our people flee. We have nothing left." Silence followed, but then a new report arrived, carried by a trembling officer whose voice shook with disbelief. "The humans, they are moving." Every counselor turned sharply, their eyes wide with terror and curiosity. "Where?" one demanded. The officer swallowed hard. "Toward the shadow fleets." The chamber erupted in cries of shock. Some laughed in bitter disbelief, others shouted warnings, but all of them felt the same icy fear. Humanity was awake, and they were choosing to fight. Out in the stars, the human fleet moved like a predator unleashed. Ships older than memory, yet stronger than any vessel in the galaxy, cut through space in perfect formation. Their hulls glowed with ancient power, their weapons charged with energy unseen in ages. The shadows met them in the void, a storm of ships cloaked in darkness, their weapons tearing into the empty air with deadly precision. Any alien fleet would have broken, but not the humans. The first human dreadnought fired a single shot, a beam of pure white energy that ripped through 3 enemy ships in one breath. The shadows scattered, their formation broken, but the humans pressed forward without hesitation. They moved with cold efficiency, their every strike precise, their every maneuver deadly. Alien fleets watching from afar transmitted the battle across the galaxy, and for the first time, the shadows were not hunters, they were prey. Entire squadrons of shadow ships exploded in silence, their black hulls shattering under human fire. Missiles streaked across the void, finding targets with unerring accuracy. Human warships advanced without pause, their weapons cutting through the darkness like fire through ice. Minutes passed, and what had taken the shadows months to achieve, the destruction of entire fleets, was undone by the awakening of a single human force. The council watched in horrified silence as the battle unfolded on their screens. The insectoid counselor's voice trembled. "They are unstoppable." The reptilian counselor growled softly. "This is why we feared them. This is why we prayed they would never return." The bird-like counselor's wings shook, his voice sharp with awe. "The shadows are falling, and yet I do not feel relief. I feel only terror." Out in the void, the battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The shadow fleet, once thought invincible, was nothing but wreckage drifting through the stars. Human ships moved through the debris without slowing, their weapons still glowing, their formation unbroken. Not one human vessel had been destroyed. Not one. A silence deeper than fear fell across the galaxy as every race realized the truth. The shadows were powerful, yes, but humanity was something greater. The shadows had been a terror. The humans were the nightmare that terror feared. In the council chamber, some began to whisper of alliances, of sending envoys with gifts, of begging for protection. But others shook their heads, knowing the truth. The humans had not fought to save the council. They had fought for themselves. The reptilian counselor spoke again, his voice heavy with dread. "They did not strike to protect us. They struck because they wished to. And now that the shadows are broken, their eyes will turn elsewhere." His words left the chamber in silence. No one dared to answer. Across the stars, the human fleet regrouped, their ships forming into tighter lines, their weapons ready. The commander who had awakened first stood aboard the lead vessel, his gaze fixed on the stars. His voice was calm, yet filled with the weight of certainty. "The galaxy thought it could forget us. The galaxy thought it could rule in our absence. But the galaxy was wrong. We are awake. And this war is only the beginning." The galaxy trembled in the aftermath of the human awakening. News spread faster than light across every star system. Human ships had crushed the shadow fleet, not with struggle or sacrifice, but with terrifying ease. Entire civilizations that had lived in fear for years now sat in silence, their eyes glued to the endless transmissions of wreckage floating in the void. The shadows had been the Council's greatest fear, yet humanity had erased them in a single battle. In the grand chamber of the Council, the air was thick with panic. The insectoid councilors' mandibles clicked nervously. The shadows are gone, but our fear has only grown. What do we do now? The reptilian councilor slammed his claw against the table. We do nothing. We hide. If they destroyed the shadows without effort, imagine what they would do to us if we angered them. A deep murmur swept through the chamber as the bird-like councilor leaned forward, his feathers trembling. They are not allies. They did not save us. They saved themselves. We are insects to them, nothing more. Silence followed until the youngest councilor, a soft-voiced amphibian, spoke with trembling courage. Perhaps we must bow. Perhaps survival means kneeling before them, before their strength. The others turned sharply, horrified by the suggestion, but none dared deny its logic. Outside the council chamber, fleets across the galaxy began to shift. Some prepared offerings, gold, resources, entire planets meant to appease humanity. Others debated fleeing to the darkest corners of space, hoping the humans would not notice their weakness. But deep down, every race knew there was no hiding. Humanity had awakened, and they would see everything. On the human flagship, the commander who had led the awakening stood in silence as his officers reported victory after victory. The shadows were broken, their scattered remains hunted down without mercy. The commander's eyes were cold as he stared at the holographic map of the galaxy. The shadows thought they could terrorize us. The council thought they could rule without us. Both were wrong. The age of the council is over. The age of humanity begins now. His words carried across the fleet, and every human soldier straightened with pride. They had slept for centuries, buried in cryo sleep while the galaxy forgot them. Now they were awake, and they would never return to silence. Within days, human fleets appeared at Council space. Their arrival was not subtle. The skies above the Council homeworld darkened as titanic warships drifted into orbit, their weapons humming with restrained energy. The council chamber shook as alarms blared, and terrified leaders rushed to the windows, staring at the impossible sight. Human ships, larger than cities, hung above them like executioners waiting for command. The insectoid councilor collapsed to the floor. It is over. We are finished. The reptilian councilor growled in despair. They are here to claim what is theirs. And he was right. A human envoy, armored in black steel, entered the chamber with slow, deliberate steps. His helmet concealed his face, his voice distorted by ancient technology, yet his words were clear and sharp. The council is dissolved. Your authority is gone. From this day forward, humanity decides. The councilors protested weakly, but their voices faltered under the envoy's gaze. They knew resistance was useless. The humans had no need for negotiations, no need for treaties. Power itself was their argument, and no one could deny it. The envoy continued. You will obey. You will supply. You will kneel. And if you do not, you will share the fate of the shadows. The chamber filled with silence as the weight of his words pressed upon them. Some councilors broke into tears, others into bitter mutters, but all of them lowered their heads. For the first time in history, the council bowed, not to fear of shadows, but to the overwhelming presence of humanity. Across the galaxy, broadcasts spread of the council's surrender. Billions watched as their leaders bent their heads, and billions more whispered the same words in their homes. Humanity rules now. The commander aboard the flagship watched the surrender in silence. His officers waited for him to speak, and finally, he did. The galaxy thought they could bury us in time. They thought we would sleep forever. But now we are awake, and nothing will ever put us back into the dark. His words carried through every human vessel, igniting a fire in the hearts of his people. The new order had begun, not with celebration, but with fear, and the galaxy understood one truth above all others. The shadows had been terror. The council had been power. But humanity was something else entirely. Humanity was destiny.